Colorwork crochet is used to create beautiful patterns and intricate designs using multiple colors of yarn. Now, there are 3 distinct techniques used to do this, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a breakdown of each one so you can decide which one will suit you and your project best. In tapestry crochet, you work with multiple colors of yarn at the same time, carrying the unused colors along with you as you crochet. The unused yarn is hidden within the stitches of the working yarn. Because you're carrying the yarn, your fabric is going to look the same on both sides, meaning it's reversible. The result is a dense but sturdy fabric with clear and well-defined color changes. As far as projects, this is suitable for geometric patterns, pictures, and motifs where the color changes are frequent and often within the same row. Intarsia crochet involves using separate lengths or balls of yarn, sometimes called a bobbin, for each block of color. When you switch your colors, you drop the current yarn and pick up the new color, leaving the previous yarn behind. One thing to keep in mind with this technique is the fabric can be lighter and more flexible compared to the tapestry crochet since you're not carrying the yarn along. This technique is best suited for large, solid blocks of color and complex images where each color is used in distinct sections rather than being used frequently in the same row. Although you'll have more ends with this technique, once they're weaved in, this one will also be reversible, meaning it looks the same on both sides. Stranded crochet involves working with 2 or 3 colors per row, and the unused yarn is carried loosely behind the work. This means your project will have strands of yarn, also known as floats, on the back side. Now, because of that, this technique is often used while working in the round or when the back side won't be seen. Sometimes you'll hear stranded crochet referred to as ferrule crochet, and that's because it has a similar look to ferrule knitting. Ferrule is a Shetland island off the coast of Scotland, and this is where the ferrule knitting originated. And these patterns have a very unique and intricate style. So ferrule and stranded crochet has become sort of synonymous, but I just want you to be aware of that history. So that's how your techniques are different, but how are they similar? First, they all use a grid style chart for reading the patterns. Each little block or square represents one single crochet, and you read your pattern from the bottom to the top. If you're right-handed, you're going to start in the bottom right corner and work to your left, just like you would with crochet. And then if you're left-handed, you're going to start in the bottom left corner and work to your right, just like when you're crocheting. Now, if you're working on a flat project where you're flipping after every row, you're going to start row 1, working from right to left, go up, and then work from left to right, and just alternate this all the way up. Just like you would be doing with your crocheting. It's going to correspond with your turns. Now, if you're working in the round, you're always going to start on the right side if you're right-handed, or the left side if you're left-handed. You'll also notice that we have different colors for the squares. This is showing you where to do your color changes. You might have a pattern that is black and white or a grayscale, but usually they come with a color key. And that leads us to the other similarity. We're going to use the same color changing technique for all 3 methods. This color changing technique is very important if you're wanting to do color work in crochet, and really any kind of color changes in crochet, this is very beneficial. And that's because it's going to make your stitches look really clean and uniform. If you're not familiar with this already, basically you're going to complete the last stitch before the color change with the new color. So for example, I'm going to do a color change here on row 2 on the 6th square. But I'm going to complete the 5th square with the new color. So I'll do my 5 single crochets. With our final stitch before the color change, we're going to complete it with the new color. So we're going to go in, pull our yarn through, bring in the new color, and that completes that stitch and gets us ready for the new block of color. So we're just going to go in and complete our stitch. So why do we do that? Because the top of our stitches lean slightly to the right. So we need to ensure that that stitch is going to match the base of the new stitch. What you do with your yarn tails as you're changing colors will depend on the technique that you're using, and we'll talk more about that in those segments. So again, this is very, very important that you learn this style of color changes, get into the habit of it, get very comfortable with it. But I do have a little hack for you once you get very comfortable with doing this. With this way, you don't have to finish that last stitch with a new color. You can finish it completely. Let's go ahead and do that. For our example again, we're going to work row 2. I have 5 stitches before I have a color change at number 6. So before we did the color change at the end of the 5th stitch, this time we're going to complete that 5th stitch. And I've done so here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to do the color change as we're doing the 6th stitch. To do that, just simply take your hook and go through those 2 side bars. Bring in your new color and pull it through. You can pull on the strand with the old color. And now complete your next single crochet with the new color. And as you can see, everything is the same. The stitch is sitting on top of your single crochet just like it should. So there's no real magic here. You're just doing the same thing. You're just doing it one step later. Now I do have another color change. What I like about this is I don't have to worry about it. I can just come back in, bring in the new color, drop the other one, and continue on. No matter which technique you use, it's really important to remember what side is the front and which side is the back, or in other words, the right side and the wrong side. A really easy way to do this is just to pay attention to the tail. If you're right-handed, the tail will sit on the left side when you're on the front, and on the right side when you're on the back. And that's in the reverse if you're left-handed. It will be on the right side when you're on the front, and on the left side when you're on the back. For tapestry crochet, it's very important that you start your very first row with both of the colors that you're using, or if you're using more than that, include all of the colors that you'll be using. This is because you want to keep consistency with the density of your project. For example, I have 2 colors here, so I'm going to start with both of the colors. So I'm creating my very first row. I'm starting with a chain of 12 because my pattern has 11 stitches. I'm getting ready to do my very first single crochet, and as I'm doing it, I'm going to bring in my new color and work over the strand to catch it, to get ready to carry it with me. 1, 2, I'm getting ready to do my single crochet, making sure it's kind of behind my work here. Pull the yarn through and make my single crochet. This will be fiddly, be prepared for that. But now I've got my second strand ready to carry along with me as I work. And now I'm just going to continue on with the pattern. I have to do the full row with just this one color for single crochets. And as I'm doing it, I have my second color sandwiched in between my stitch. With this technique, you do want to work a little bit more tightly than you normally would. I'm not exactly doing that here, but that is a big tip. This will help hide or camouflage that strand of yarn a lot better. Another thing you can do is work with a smaller hook to make your stitches tighter. Chaining up 1 and turning. If you notice here, we only have 1 block of color that we need to change. And so when we're doing the classic or the traditional way of color changes, it will look like this. And remember, I still need to carry that color with me, the second color, as I work. Tightening. I'm coming up to my 5th stitch. I'm completing the stitch with the new color. I'm working my next stitch, making sure that I'm working over the strand of yarn from the previous color. Remember, we're carrying it. Okay, but now I'm getting ready to do my next color change because the next stitch is the previous color, right? So again, switching colors and pulling the yarn through to complete the stitch. And then I can continue on, making sure to carry that color along the way. Now, if you're anything like me, that can get really confusing and you may forget to hold off completing that stitch. And you may be like me and you just complete that stitch fully. And then you notice, oh, whoops, I need to color change again. You don't have to backtrack. You can use the new way. Remember, you can just go into the side, bring in that color, pull on that loop. Don't forget to carry that yarn with you as you're working, and complete the stitch. This is why I love this method so much, because I always forget about the color change in that previous stitch. So even if you're not a really big fan, you're used to the classic way, if you accidentally forget, you can always go back to that new way, just to save you a little bit of time if you do forget. So that's really all you need to know about tapestry crochet. Just don't forget to carry the yarn as you're working and get very comfortable with your color changes. And you have two different options here, which I think makes it a lot easier. One really lovely benefit to working in tapestry crochet is the limited amount of tails. Because you're carrying them, you have the two from the very beginning and the two at the very end. With Intarsia crochet, we're using multiple balls of yarn or bobbins of yarn. Because we're not carrying the yarn, this is going to give you a very clean look after these have all been weaved in. As you can see, there are a lot of tails to weave in later, but if you're working on something that has big blocks of color like I mentioned earlier, this is really a great option. Even more so than tapestry crochet, it's very important to be mindful of your front and back side of your work. Again, you're wanting to keep your tails towards the back of your work so that the front is nice and clean. So I'm just starting like I did before, 12 chains, starting in the second chain from the hook. This will give me 11 single crochets. Notice here I didn't bring in a color. I don't need to carry the lighter color for the heart here. I'm just bringing it in when I need it. I'm coming to my very first color change, and remember, you can either complete the stitch right before the color change with your new color, or you can complete it and just go into the side of it, whichever you prefer. Now, something to remember here is we're working on the back side, so we want to keep all of our tails towards the back. So I want this tail in front here, bringing my new color in. Working my single crochet. At this point, I have another color change. Let's do it the original way, just so you can see both ways. Bringing everything forward. Now we're back to normal. Okay, we're back on the front side, so everything can stay behind, just like it was. So I need to do 3 of the new color, and if you look back here, I can just pull it through. It looks like this on the back, but we can cover that with our stitches. Because it was so close by, that's pretty well hidden. Now, we do have this tail here. We're coming back to where we need to do that other side of color, but that is too far to be able to easily cover that up, so we do need to bring in another ball of yarn. If you're working with multiple colors, making little bobbins works real well, but just a little bundle of yarn is really all you need. And knowing how much yarn you need, that takes practice. You're just going to have to eyeball it at first, kind of guesstimate how much you think you might need, but it's really trial and error. So now I have 3 active balls of yarn working for this very simple project. I don't have a foolproof way of keeping things organized. After years of trying different methods, the only thing that works is reorganizing yourself and getting ready before every row or round. Simple as that, just patience and organization. I'm getting ready for another color change. I'm very close to the other color, so I can camouflage it, I can hide it under my stitches. Remember, I'm on the back side, so I'm pulling everything forward towards me. Okay. And now I'm working my stitches. This isn't as reversible as your tapestry crochet, but it will look good on both sides, even with these little telltale signs. And that's really all there is to Intarsia crochet. You're just going to keep dropping the color until you need it. And then if you come to a portion of your project where your yarn won't reach it in a pretty way, then you're just going to bring in another skein or bobbin of yarn. When I got to the top of this heart, I did need to bring in another couple of strands of yarn to just get that middle area. With stranded crochet, just like in Intarsia crochet, we don't need to worry about bringing in the new yarn color until we need it. So I'm just going to begin like before, starting with a chain of 12 to make 11 single crochets. But it is similar to tapestry crochet in the fact that we're going to be carrying the colors along, but just letting them hang on the back. So because of that, the back side can't be shown. Typically, this method is worked in the round, but you can also work flatly. You just need to be mindful of the front and back of your work, just like we've been doing in the previous segments. Now, I do like to complete the 5th stitch and then just add my new color within the side of the stitch. And then do my stitch. But remember, we're on the back side right now, so we need to make sure all of our tails are facing towards us. Now I can work my stitch, and I already have another color change. I can either change colors again with this previous stitch. I'm not going to do that. I prefer to just do it this way. I'm going to complete the stitch, bring the color back in, and continue on. Both ways give the exact same result. You just need to decide which one you prefer. I'm getting ready for another color change, and notice here I have a strand of yarn that I'm just going to pull all the way across and use. Just make sure that that's not too tight and not too loose, just a little bit of give. Very important tip, when you're working this way, if you have a strand of yarn that's longer than, let's say, 5 stitches, then you want to do what's called catching the float. Here I'm going to be doing 7 single crochets. I'm going to work my next single, but I'm going to make sure that I catch that strand along with it. Drop it again and continue working as normal until you need that strand. Okay, and continue working. And you'll have something that looks like this. And you're just going to continue on with this. Let's do one on this side. Okay, let's go ahead and catch that float. We're about halfway. We're just sandwiching it in as we work that single. And continuing on. If you're working stranded crochet in the round, a really fun thing you can do is to make it look like a knit stitch, and it's very simple to do. Instead of working into the top of your single crochet, you're instead going to work into the middle of the V-stitch. I've done a video all about this that I'll go ahead and link to here, but really that's all you need to know to do that. Here you can see the V-stitch. Just work it through and create your single crochet. Just right through the center of that V. And it gives that beautiful knit stitch effect. And you can create some beautiful crochet projects that look very much like Fair Isle knitting. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and the overview of the different techniques that you can do for color work in crochet. If you'd like me to do more of a deep dive with any of these techniques, be sure to let me know in the comments, but hopefully this will give you a pretty good idea of how to get started with any of them. These are really fun, and depending on the project that you're working on, you can actually incorporate 2 or more of these methods into the same project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.